So you have a itinerary and you love overlanding. You have plans to do it big on the trace and some super glamping. One idea, deep news and reviews, a podcast the first rate and here just for you. You don't have to think about it, join us and be about it. Something interesting we want to hear about it, come on let's talk about it. Welcome to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints podcast.
Sponsored by Midland, communication for every adventure. The industry leader in radio communication technology and innovation for over 50 years. Sponsored by MyMedic. Sponsored by Tembo Tusk. Sponsored by Shower Pouch. Sponsored by BrewTrek. Sponsored by Hard Impact Designs.
Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Hey, what's up, Mike?
Oh, not a lot, Phil. It's a good day here in New Mexico. Checking in here from just outside of Albuquerque on a beautiful sunny day.
You know, Mike, Davis, Hard Impact Designs lives somewhere near Albuquerque.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just texted back and forth with him about an hour ago, and we're going to get together this weekend. So we're hoping to get together. We'll see what we do. We've probably caused trouble here in the New Mexico area, you know.
Mike, I'm not gonna mess around today.
Oh boy,
we always claim to be controversial. Well, I think we'll be by the end of this podcast controversial.
Okay.
We'll start out kind of soft at first.
Okay.
I know Elon Musk is one of your favorite people. And some of my favorite people are Boeing employees.
I know where this is going already.
I happen to live in the state of Washington, right outside of Seattle, which is like the headquarters for Boeing. There are so many employees. We literally have execs down the street that work there. We have a mutual friend whose name I won't mention because of the conversation we're going to have. I don't want them to think that maybe I got some of this information from him, but he's a watcher. He's gone to our parties. You know him. I'll tell you who it is afterwards.
Okay.
I would love for him to message me or hit me up after he watches the podcast after we talk about this. So anyway, everybody knows that there's two Boeing employees stuck at the space station. And a lot of people don't know that that's a Boeing facility up there, and the transport is a Boeing spacecraft. There is such lack of faith in Boeing that Elon Musk's, what's the name of his company? SpaceX?
SpaceX, yep.
Yes, SpaceX has been given the task of taking one of his spaceships to go up and pick up these people. And I happen to know, like I said, quite a few Boeing people, and they are pissed.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They are embarrassed. They are so shamed right now. And it's a big deal here in this state. So anything to say about it? Have you heard about this?
I sure have. Well, let me start out by saying, number one, although I am an Elon, I wouldn't say I'm an Elon Musk fan. I would say that I am a fan of his endeavors, particularly SpaceX and Starlink, because as we've discussed before on the podcast, you and I are talking right now via Starlink, and we wouldn't be talking without Elon Musk. But a little bit deeper than that, I'm just going to throw it out because the difference, I think, between SpaceX and they're very successful rocket missions, right? So the reason that they've been selected to go rescue these 2 astronauts is because their space program has repeatedly gone to the International Space Station, has repeatedly launched with people on it, and it's been successful over the last bunch of years. The Boeing one was the first time that they put people on this thing, first time they sent it up there. And I don't want to diss on the US government, but let's just be honest. SpaceX has operated largely autonomously from NASA. They develop their own stuff in-house. They, it's been wildly successful, and they think outside the box. It's one of the things that I do like about Elon Musk. Unfortunately, Boeing, partly maybe because they're bigger corporate, been around a long time, but they partnered with NASA, and now you've got government red tape and yellow tape and orange tape and various other color tapes. Their program is, we can't even call this apples to apples. It's like apples and oranges. Like there's not the two, they're so different, right?
Oh yeah, the level of R&D, technology, the actual skilled people is on a whole nother level. If you're an engineer, if you're a scientist, and you're at the top of your game, you're going to them. You're not going to NASA.
That's right. You're at SpaceX. So that's one of the problems. And, sadly, I think everybody, myself included, being sort of being a pilot and having a love of aviation, and Boeing is obviously our American company, right? Like, so their biggest competitor is Airbus, which is foreign. So we all kind of want to root for the American company. They've been embroiled in a whole mess of problems, but with their planes, with doors flying off, with now they've got a rocket. And between you and I, Phil, we know that we're only getting maybe we're getting 50% of the truth. I'm not even sure we're getting that. So when they tell you that, they want to err on the side of caution. They don't really want to bring them home in that ship. They think they could probably do it. They're going to detach it, I think, this week maybe, and send it home unmanned. Well, I think they've come to the conclusion that the thing is going to spontaneously combust and blow up. That's my opinion, right? I mean, I don't know.
Corporations make calculations that include mortality.
Yeah.
So usually they will allow a certain amount of death before they do something about it if it's cheaper. Yep. What has happened is Boeing has reached a point where, if it might be like a 1% chance that those people were harmed or died on the return back, right?
Yeah.
But they can't risk 1% anymore, because if this happens, they're done.
Yeah.
They're done. They could have another plane crash and be okay. They can't have that happen.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, they're claiming that NASA made the decision. I don't know if that's true or not. Who knows whether it was Boeing, NASA, both of them. It's hard to say. I give credit. I did listen to the press conference actually when they announced this, and the director, I think, of the program from NASA, admitted that all space exploration and all launches, particularly ones that are the first time putting people on it, are dangerous as hell. I mean, he said it. And he said there's a significant risk, and there's always going to be. And Elon Musk has said that, by the way, as well, about their program. They haven't killed anybody, launching yet, but knock on wood. But unfortunately, at some point it's going to happen. That's just the way it works. You're strapping somebody to the back of a nuclear bomb, basically, and launching them into orbit.
Anytime you are in an environment that is not your natural environment, you're rolling the dice, whether you go under the sea, you go into space, you go wherever you go. If you're not in your natural environment, you're rolling the dice.
Yep. So my big criticism, I'm going to say this here on the podcast for the record, my big criticism of the whole thing is, you know what the behind the scenes of some of this, because I have followed the story pretty closely, is that, and the reason that these astronauts have to stay up there until February is largely not even necessarily because of the launch schedule. It has a little bit to do with the fact that there's not a lot of compatibility between the two programs. And my understanding is one of the things that is, and my dad actually used to work for United Technologies and building spacesuits, funny enough. And what I've heard is that the spacesuit that is worn by Boeing and the one that SpaceX uses are not compatible. So I believe they have to send up 2 spacesuits for these poor astronauts so that they can get home on the SpaceX mission home on that platform, because their current suits that they went up in don't work. They don't plug in. I don't know, whatever the scenario is. So some of this stuff is, you and I look at it and go, man, like, shouldn't this be more advanced than this, or shouldn't this be more organized? You know, really, I mean, like, come on. But hey, I don't know.
Well, I'm going to give you some quotes that I got after I found out about this. I did a little research and, looked up some news, and here's some quotes from some employees of Boeing.
Yep.
We have had so many embarrassments lately. We're under a microscope. This just made it like 100 times worse, said one worker, speaking on the condition of anonymity. We hate SpaceX, he added. We talk shit about them all the time, and now they're bailing us out.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Especially when you're on a program like that, I can imagine the team is super dedicated to what they're doing. And these are talented people. So, to have your competitor, particularly one that is a newbie, let's look at it this way. Boeing has been around forever, as NASA. And now, SpaceX is, in the scheme of things, is fairly new. It's just like the baby. And, you and I have talked about this, I think, on the podcast before, concerning Starlink. I mean, he's hit it out of the park. It's been a home run. And he's largely launched a worldwide communication network, which, by the way, and we've talked about this, I think is it's just the beginning. It's like world domination. He's going to control cell phones, going to control all sorts of stuff, information technology, whatever, in the future. And basically, it's being ridden on the back of the U.S. taxpayers, because this stuff is being launched on the backs of aircraft, spacecraft that are going, but that are funded by us, that are being launched up. And, he's piggybacking a bunch of Starlink satellites on it as it goes to the space station, whatever's happening. So I give him credit. It's a ballsy move. It's working.
Well, Mike, we've talked about this before. We both seem to be fans of following the trajectory of Elon Musk's career in life. He's going to be someone who goes down in history as, in this era, like Ford. He's going to be like a modern day Ford or Edison.
Which, by the way, is why he's a super polarizing figure, because every one of those guys that you just named, many people loved them and many people hated them. That's the nature of an innovator. So I'm sure we've got people listening to the podcast right now that can't stand Elon Musk. I just saw it last week, or an article about, Tesla Cybertruck is a polarizing thing, right? So you got people that love the Cybertruck, that think it looks cool. You got a bunch of people that are like, I wouldn't buy that thing if it was the last thing on the planet. It looks like a Pontiac Aztec that got sat on. But unfortunately, some of the people, and by the way, I'm going to bring up one little topic that I didn't tell you about. This is going to roll in right in with it really good. What I don't like is people not liking Elon Musk because of a political viewpoint. Because I know there's people out there, like, the guy's an asshole because, he's, I don't know, now he's supporting Donald Trump supposedly, although even that's in question. I don't know that he really is. But forget about that. That's non-relevant. Who gives a crap? You know what I'm saying? Like, he is a weird character for sure.
Well, what I have learned is, like, we talked about, like, I used to shoot ball with MJ, right? Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that I don't like him.
Yep.
But you would never hear me say he wasn't the GOAT. You'd never hear me. If we were discussing his game, I would be accurate about it.
Exactly. Separate passion from facts.
Yes.
Facts on one side and you can look, you might hate the guy. It doesn't take away what he's good at. You know, maybe you just don't like his personality. You don't like his morals. You don't like his culture, whatever it is. It doesn't mean, in this case with Elon Musk, it does not mean that he doesn't make a great spaceship, doesn't innovate Starlink, doesn't, he's going to go rescue 2 of our astronauts now.
This is indicative of where our politics and society are now. People prefer some connection, some feeling versus what qualities does this person have for the job? Are they the best person for the job?
Okay, so here's my thing I'm going to bring up. I put on Instagram this morning because I just get so much social media stuff. I put up a thing saying, "Hey, ask me any question." And so I got to tell you, I've gotten like, I don't know, probably 100 people have asked questions, you name it, from the length of my truck to how come I don't have a co-pilot on board all sorts of stuff. But one of the people asked me, interesting, it started up a firestorm in my head, asked me, they see me drinking coffee and see me at Overland Expo and asked me like, what's my feelings on coffee and coffee companies? And they had brought up in a little message, a company called, I don't know if you've heard of them, Black Coffee. It's not
Black Rifle.
It's not Black Rifle. It's a company, Black. I think it's shit. I have to look it up here. I think it's just called Black Coffee. It's out of Florida, and they market themselves as a. You know what? I don't want to misquote this. Let's just look it up here while we're talking. But my point of this whole thing is, and I'm going to answer this on Instagram. Yeah, it's called Black Coffee. I think it doesn't even sound right, does it? Black Coffee.
Is it a Northwest company?
No. It's from Florida. I'm probably, this is what happens. The Black Coffee Company, St. Petersburg, Florida. I think it's that one.
Black Bear Coffee. Florida.
No, Black Coffee.
Oh, Black Coffee.
I don't know. Let's see if that's it. So now we're doing some research online here live about coffee. Our coffee, fair trade. No, this doesn't sound like it. I'm going to have to look it up.
The Black Coffee Company, St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yeah, I don't know if this is it. I don't think this is it. Anyways, it's not relevant what the name of the coffee company is. What is relevant is it started a whole dialogue about whether the coffee company is woke or it's not woke. And I don't know if you've seen in the press, Black Rifle Coffee Company, which is a veteran-owned coffee company that was pretty controversial for a while. In fact, they approached me at one point about sponsoring me because they have a similar truck to mine. They have a Stewart Stevenson truck that they market around with. And they used to pick on Starbucks all the time and say that, Starbucks was, I don't know, woke coffee and, Black Rifle was very militaristic, I guess. Well, anyways, apparently they did something a couple months ago and, now they're frowned upon a little bit as they're not as dedicated to being, quote, conservative values as they once were. And now this new company that I'm talking about that I can't remember the name of out of Florida, the Black Coffee Company, sounds like they're copying Black Rifle if you ask me, but their website says right on it, like, we started this coffee company to be the alternative to the woke coffee companies out there. Anyways, the reason I'm going on and on about this story is like, who gives a flying shit if your coffee company is woke or not woke? Or last time I checked, Phil, I like good coffee. So I'm not sure why we're talking about, like, who gives a crap? Yeah, but literally, I got sucked into this and I was watching something on, I think it was on Facebook, about people ran back and forth about whether they should buy their coffee or not based on whether or not they're woke or they're conservative or whatever their values are. And I'm like, why does this matter? So I didn't mean to. digress off of that, but it's similar to the concept about I don't like Elon Musk because he does this. It's like, oh, really?
It's gotten worse in the last, I'd say, 5 to 8 years. But something that I've detested that's always happened is I've never understood why once a company or corporation reaches a certain size, it's required to be involved in social issues or have like a statement.
Found it. Here we go. Okay. I agree. I'll read this. It's blackout, not black. Blackout Coffee was founded in Florida 6 years ago because we were tired of giving our money to woke coffee companies that didn't share our values. You can't make this shit up. So yeah,
we're not sitting at the cafeteria table with Sally because she wears gym shoes. That's what that sounds like to me.
But what is interesting about this is that this. So I'm looking at an ad right now. They're advertising 3 times the growth in 2023, 7 times larger facility, over 100,000 customers. They're on Start Engine. They're looking for investments for as little as $500, and they're trying to get seed capital. And what I find, and they, by the way, they've raised, I think, half of it. And what I want to bring up about that is that people say, as a business, you shouldn't get involved in, one side or the other. But the reality is, I'm going to give you the argument why that's a wrong statement, because if these guys come out and say, we are on the right, we've got conservative values, we hate woke, whatever, 50% of the people in the United States are going to support them. And the reality is they're going to support them rabidly, right? So that's better than having 100% of the population sort of not really that, who gives a crap, right? It works like this with the MyPillow guy. Look at the MyPillow guy. He's a Looney Tunes. Let's just be real. The guy's a Looney Tunes. I know I'm offending somebody out there, but he's still claiming that the election was stolen, and that he's got proof. And I mean, he's never come out with the proof, but he's been saying it for 4 years now. So, but is his MyPillow company hurting? Probably not. Probably not, because there's plenty of people on the right that are going, that's the only pillow I'm going to buy.
Mike, I hope you really, really don't get offended this early in the podcast, because we're going to get worse and worse.
Oh God,
as it goes. I promise that this podcast will go down in history.
Well, let me get out some Black Llama coffee over here so I can have some coffee while we talk about this. No, just what do you got next? Tell me what else is.
And just for you people who you clicked on this specifically because of the word Overland or whatever, I promise that all of this is going to all come back to Overlanding. I promise you.
That's right.
We always do, don't we, Mike?
Oh, we always do.
So the next thing I wanted to bring up is on July 19th, the Series 1 and another tanker collided off Malaysia in the South China Sea on July 19th, causing significant damage to both vessels. Malaysian authorities said that the Series 1 had experienced technical difficulties, but shipping and energy analysts said the pattern of the vessel's movements before the collision suggested another explanation. The Series 1 had been broadcasting a fake location on ship locator channels. So I'm not going to read the whole article. They were giving out false locations, and at some point, they weren't even giving out their location. They had their signal off. And this Series 1 is known to be a part of a dark fleet of tankers that basically transports non-sanctioned oil to China. And I'll stop there for now. What do you think about this, Mike? Because I have a very strong opinion about it.
Well, I mean, let's talk about this. So basically what you're saying is that every time one of us goes on Amazon and buys something made out of plastic, it's being made in China by plastic, as you guys probably know, is mostly petroleum, is made by the oil that's on this tanker. and the tanker is operating in a shadow because it's obviously illegal. It's coming from countries like Venezuela and Russia and Iran and who knows where else. And now it's obviously causing a danger on the sea because it's got a tracker turned off. There's collision avoidance, similar to what we have like on planes. Which, by the way, there are some legit things that are turning off their signals too. That's a whole different story because of pirates and whatnot, like around Somalia and stuff. But yeah, what do I think about that? It's like everything else, Phil. It's politics. It's political, right? Because if we wanted to take out these things and stop this from happening, we certainly have the power to do that. And we know, I'm quite sure that, our U.S. military knows every single one of these boats, where they are, where they're moving to, and what's going on. So,
So before I really get into what I want to say, just give some facts. Ian Rawby, a senior fellow for the Maritime Governance at Yokosuka Council on Asian Pacific Studies, he basically said it was not a matter of if, but a matter of when something like this happened. And he goes on to mention that there's over 600 tankers like this. It's not just like a handful of tankers in a large, vast ocean. It's over 600 tankers going back and forth the same route as maybe 3 or 4 times that many tankers.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't see you. It's like driving. This is the equivalent of driving on the highway with your eyes closed.
Fog. Yep. Right. Yep.
So one, it's crazy that a collision hasn't happened sooner. In this case, this particular one had just been offloaded its cargo oil, so it didn't turn out to be as bad. But if it had been full of oil, that would have been a huge environmental situation.
Mm-hmm. And sadly, that's usually what it takes to get people interested in something, right? Because we're looking for sound bites on the news. So, rogue tankers is not super exciting. But when 2 of them collide, and now we have 80 million gallons of oil spilled, killing turtles. Now you're going to hear about it. It's kind of sad, but that's the way it works.
Yeah, it will literally take minimum of a decade to overcome just one incident like that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look how long the Exxon Valdez thing in Alaska, and then the thing that happened off the coast of Alabama, Florida, down that way. So I mean, there's still side effects.
So I don't care. You're a country. You're supposed to do what's best for your country. If you can get some cheap oil, go get the cheap oil. But turn your signal on and just say, hey, we're going to get this oil. So what?
Because the reality is that we're not going to stop them. We should,
right?
Because we have an embargo, but we're not gonna.
But here's the thing: how do we sanction or embargo another country, really?
Well, that's a good point.
I mean, it's unenforceable. You couldn't even go to NATO about it.
Nope. Well, at current events, Vladimir Putin, I think, landed in Mongolia yesterday, and Mongolia is a signee to the international whatever thing that requires them to arrest somebody that has an international warrant out. Well, they're not, right? I mean, because Mongolia has been a puppet government of the Soviet Union and Russia for forever. So that's not going to happen. They're not going to arrest Putin. Give me a break. Because guess what? They're getting oil from them. So that's just the way it works. And I agree with you, Phil. What gives us the right to say you can't?
I mean, I'm USA, right?
Me too.
But I still deal with reality.
Yeah, exactly. So reality will tell you, and this is not to stray too far from our topic here. Holy crap, are we off topic? This has always been my problem with the UN and with NATO and with all of these organizations that this went on during the pandemic, where they were really releasing statements about, when the International Health, whatever they were called, the UN Health Council or whatever, says, this is what have to happen. Well, this is non-binding. Like, that's been my whole problem with the UN. It's an organization that's kind of useless, to be honest. It doesn't do anything. It has no power. It really doesn't have any power. Look at Israel and the Gaza Strip right now. They've told them the ceasefire shit. They told them that, I don't know, the day after it started. Who's listening to that? Nobody.
So off the cuff, Mike, let's count how many countries really have any kind of power, any kind of actual say. America. Let's see how accurate we can be.
I would argue America, England, United Kingdom, France, probably those three. And by the way, that's largely because of colonization. France and England both control lots of countries because they used to control them. China. I would say China is a significant player and has a lot of force and has a lot of control over, particularly a lot of developing countries now. They've moved into Africa and South America and different places. Gets really thin after that. It starts getting thin because... and
I would venture to say that 2 of the 4 on your list are actually under America.
Yeah, they're puppet governments of us. France and America and England aren't going to do shit without us. Yeah, I agree. Yep, right. So you got 2, us and China. There's other countries that control GDP and control production and stuff like that, like Japan and India, but it's not the same.
Manufacturing puts you in a powerful position as far as, like you said, GDP, what's in your bank account.
Yep.
But at any given moment, the powers that be can change all of that. Because the bottom line, what makes those countries that you're describing so big in the GDP is you have a lot of very, very low income people working in these manufacturing companies in these remote areas. They can shift to a whole nother country. So you're never stable. Or a lot of times those countries, you read their history, if they have a long history of being a place where companies come and open up manufacturing, there's a coup every 5 years.
Yep. That's totally true. You saw the Pope right now is over in touring Asia, interestingly enough, because they, from a business standpoint, it's a lucrative place to recruit people. I mean, that's what churches do, right? So, and that's what he's doing.
Wait a minute, keep it clean, Mike.
What? Well, I mean, that's what he does. That's what he's over there for. I mean, that's what
you said. He went over to Asia to recruit.
Yep.
And that's what they do. So what are we talking about? Because the first thing I thought was
oh boy. No, they're recruiting for people that basically more people to send money to the church. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I wasn't talking about little boys. Is that what you're talking about? Okay, we're really off the rails today.
I just want to be clear, bro. Yeah, all you said was he was going over there to recruit.
Yeah, well, no, I meant recruit and spread the word and bring more people into their particular church, which is, that's what churches do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that Asia is a prime market for that because of what you just said. There's a lot of instability. I think he was going to Vietnam. He was going to in China. He wants to go to China. Do you know the Vatican made a deal with China a couple of years ago? Not many years ago, maybe 4 years ago, because officially in China, religion is illegal, right? But they made a deal to let the church in, and now they're trying to get an official I don't know what do you call it. I guess a recognized, place in China that they can recruit from, right? I mean, China's got some of the largest population in the world.
That would be a huge deal. Do you think it will ever happen?
I don't know, but it's the same reason why GM or Ford or Tesla or anybody else wants to get into China, Apple. There's a lot of people there to sell stuff to. It makes sense.
So, Mike, I want your opinion on something.
Oh, God. Yep. Here we go.
If you were at a baseball game, professional baseball game, you were at Fenway Park.
Okay.
And they allowed this little girl that was dying to sit with the players in the dugout.
Mm-hmm.
They don't allow people to sit in the dugout. It can be dangerous to sit in the dugout.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a foul ball or something that goes flying in there.
So that's why you have rarely ever seen anyone other than player personnel in a dugout. So let's say you came to this particular game and it's a little weak, dainty girl there, and they're letting her sit there in the dugout because she's dying. How do you feel about them breaking that rule?
Oh, boy. Whew. Hold on, I'll be right back. Gotta go get a beer. Well, I mean, two things I would say. You just brought up an interesting thing. The safety of that is a concern. However, that's something like if it was a scenario where, this poor little girl is, doesn't have a lot of time left, and this is her wildest dream that she ever wanted to sit in the dugout, whatever. I mean, there's ways to accommodate that for sure. Or they could put up a fence, to block any foul balls or whatever.
But it's a rule. You're breaking the rule. So shouldn't we be upset with that little girl and her parents? Shouldn't we be upset with Fenway for allowing that to happen, to allow this one person to do this that nobody else can do?
I don't know if you're trying to get me on the other side here or something, but no, I don't think so.
Okay. Did you? No. Did you hear about Trump? Well, Trump is in trouble because of going to a ceremony at the Arlington National Cemetery, and they have a rule where there is no photography.
Right. Well, actually, the rule is, my understanding is that you're allowed photography, but it can't be photography for the sake of politics or political gain. I think you're allowed to take pictures.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's not illegal to take the photos.
That's correct. Thanks for keeping us accurate.
Yep.
And he's gotten a lot of backlash for doing exactly that. My retort to that is, I kind of feel a certain way about people who didn't care about those people at the cemetery bashing somebody who showed up to the cemetery. I have a problem with people who they've literally been running around, tracking them down, asking them, just say my son's name. Just recognize my son, what he did, and say his name. I have a problem with you having an issue with the person who did say that person's name, who did show up. And not only that, they made sure that for that family, it was that his death didn't go in complete vain, that it was an honorable thing, that the president showed up and they were able to take a picture. I believe that's the same as the little girl I described in Fenway. There's absolutely rules, and I absolutely agree with the rule. But there was 13 people there that invited a president there, and they wanted a picture with him. Shut the fuck up.
Well, I got to tell you, let's stick to the facts. And from what I've heard, fact number one is he was invited by them.
Fact they've all been on TV explaining.
I've seen 3 interviews so far of people that were there that were from the family that said they did not see any I don't know what you want to call it, scuffle or whatever that was reported in the news that something happened. Somebody told somebody couldn't take pictures and got shoved or whatever. I don't know.
So let's stop right there and address
nobody
that.
saw that.
Let's because people pick a side instead of just looking at it.
Yep.
Just a quick question, Mike. If you were in charge of Trump's security and a few weeks back, he almost got assassinated, and anyone acted any kind of way and was coming toward the president, how would you handle that?
Pretty aggressively, I think, for sure.
Okay, so I'm back to shut up.
Well, so I guess my take on the entire thing is that once again, and you'll hear me say this many times about all sorts of news. I think the news blew the entire thing way out of proportion. I don't think that there was probably such a big deal. I agree with you that if there's a rule, I'm a rule follower. I think that rules are good and should be in place. As was the case if you had this little girl that was dying in the dugout. Look, there can be exceptions to stuff. There could have been an exception to this. This is a guy that was invited, a former president that was invited to a ceremony for the 13 people or whatever that we lost in Afghanistan. So I think it's being played politically by the other side, that this is, which, by the way, my understanding, according to the interviews that I've heard, is that both sides, we're going to call it sides for the lack of better terms here, but Trump and Biden Harris were invited.
Yes.
They were all invited.
They have been invited to a multitude of things for these families, and they have turned them down. Some of them have just said, would you just mention their name? Would you say their name?
But let's just cut to the chase. It's an embarrassment for them. They failed in that particular thing, and they don't want to admit that, but it was a failure. The whole pullout thing was just stupid. It was. I mean, I'm not saying that, like, and I'm not taking a stance here saying that, like, we should have stayed in Afghanistan or not. Shit, in my opinion, based on Russia and the Soviet Union, everybody before, we should never have gotten in there in the first place. But that's just a non-solvable situation. But like the way that we extricated ourselves and pulled out the troops and our allies was handled very similarly to the way that I guess Boeing built a plane with doors flying off. Yeah, it was terrible. So I can understand why that administration does not want to be there, not necessarily because they don't feel bad for those people or that they don't want to support them, but they definitely, it's just an optics thing. Because if I get a picture of them next to these guys, all I think about is, holy crap, these guys killed them. So they don't want to be in the picture. I get that.
Right. I get it too. So it pisses me off how biased people are, because I can very easily, and any intelligent person that throws their biases away and looks at this, I could easily see, if it was a president that was liked by the media, how this same story would have been. Arlington Cemetary normally has this rule that's been here for 100 and something years, but the presidents stood up for these families and made sure that they had they would have spun it a whole different kind of way.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, if you've watched any of the video from that, all the video that I've seen, I'm waiting for some video to show me something to the contrary, but all of the video I've seen, they were, meaning Trump, his team, whoever else was there, and the people that were, the families, was all super respectful. I saw him laying a wreath. I've not seen any video contrary to anything but respect. And if it exists, maybe it does, but I haven't seen it. Nobody has showed that. So to me, non-issue. If you don't got proof, it's just politics. And Phil, while we're on it, I think it's going to backfire, because if I was the team that was discussing what Trump did wrong and what supposedly happened there, I'd be careful with that. That's a subject that based on the reason that they were all there in the first place, I would just stay out of that. I would talk about something else. I don't think that's a lose-lose.
I agree. But I just didn't like attack the man for something real. He got plenty of stuff to be attacked about.
I about to say, I mean, holy hell. There's plenty of
so I hope the listeners
for.
Ain't thinking I'm supporting him.
No. You're right. There's lots of things you could attack him for. That's not really a good one. But that's where we are, And by the way, today, so for those of you that are listening to the podcast, we release these podcasts on Fridays, and we generally, not always, but we generally record them on Tuesdays. So I'm looking at my calendar right here, Phil, and next Tuesday, which is when we'll probably record the next podcast, I believe is the debate, is the day of the debate. So guarantee what we're going to do is we'll give you guys predictions on what we think is going to come out of that debate before it happens. Next podcast.
We got something to talk about after the mics get cut off. I got all kinds of stuff crossing my mind.
Oh boy. So anyways, so thanks for joining us here on the Overlanding podcast, talking about camping, overlanding, building rigs, and everything else that we've talked about so far. Oh no, we haven't talked about that yet.
So Mike, do you want to bring it home as to how all these three stories connect to overlanding? And let's just briefly, the SpaceX story with Boeing, and the other one was the dark tankers in China, and the other one is Trump.
Well, geez, I don't know what you're going to tell me.
I know people are like, what the heck do this have to do with Overland?
Well, I tell you what, I could connect the dark tankers and the SpaceX thing. These are transportation things, right? So particularly the SpaceX and think about these guys in the terms of overlanding. Astronauts are probably the ultimate overlanders from a standpoint of adventurers, right? I mean,
yeah.
These guys are explorers. These guys are taking huge, huge risks to hopefully benefit all of us at some point. I mean, we don't go to space and do these things for no reason, right? We're doing them to advance human society in some way. I mean, that's I think, I hope that's the goal.
It takes a special kind of person to do that. I remember a couple of years ago, I was telling you I had camped for 14 days straight for the very first time. I mean, isolated.
Yep.
A lot of people would be like, 14 days, I've done that. But no, I mean, you see no one. There's no interaction with anything. It's just you for 14 days. I could not imagine being on a spaceship, not even on the Earth, for 14 hours, man.
Can you imagine being those two astronauts going up for what was supposed to be a 7 or 8 day mission and then staying there for 9 months? Oh, man. I hope they brought all their board games and chess boards and stuff, because I don't know what else they're doing.
So I would like to see the movie script for this. They're gonna make some kind of movie about it. It might not be a top tier movie, but they're gonna make a movie about this or some kind of documentary.
Especially if the ship never gets home.
Mike.
No, I don't mean them. What I mean is the ship that they rode up on, that supposedly, I think in the next couple of days, Boeing said that they're going to attempt to bring that ship back unmanned. And so now if something goes wrong with it coming back unmanned, unfortunately for Boeing, go back to that story, we're all going to be like, oh God, well, it's a good thing that Elon Musk is bringing them back, because otherwise they'd be dead. So they better get the empty ship back here safe. Let's just say that.
I'm hoping that when they get back, we don't get some story that 6 months or a year later they divorced their wives and now they're married or something.
Right.
That's a long time to be with one person of the opposite sex.
No, but my understanding is there's 6 other people on board. No, there's other people up there. It's not just the 2 of them. They're on the space station. So I think there's other people. I don't know how many other people, and that itself is weird because it's US and Russia. So like we don't get along on anything, but somehow we managed to put people on the space station together.
So what does this have to do with overlanding?
Mm-hmm.
We've basically just discussed the future of telecommunications. We've basically just discussed the future of transportation by looking at these two stories. These are companies that, that's a company that's going to affect the future of how you telecommute, how far you're able to travel, what type of job you'll be able to take, whether you'll be able to travel and work part-time or whatever.
Because by the way, I just put, we are now talking for the first time on this podcast on my new Starlink. I just got a Gen 3 Starlink and installed it 2 days ago on the truck. So it's a flat mount on the roof. So now when I travel, I don't have to take my Starlink up and down.
So what happened to your old one?
I still have it. I still have my old one, but I'm not using it, but I still have the system. But I will tell you, the new one, I was getting speeds. I think I posted on my Instagram yesterday. I go getting speeds of like 300. Crazy fast. So amazing. And then
387.
Yeah, that's insane. Super fast. And let me mention something about the shipping thing. I had a discussion with a buddy of mine last night. Shipping, as many of you full-time nomads out there with aspirations to go to other continents and whatnot and bring in your vehicles, or even down to South America where you got to get through the Darien Gap, realize that is an upside down. The shipping industry in the world right now, post-pandemic, is still, I wish I could say it was a lot better than it was 2 years ago, but I'd be lying. It's not. And then there's another wrinkle in the whole thing that has developed. And I don't want to get way off topic because that's what we do. But there's been a lot of companies that have now restricted vehicles from going on board ships due to lithium batteries. So I'll give you an example. I have 4 lithium batteries on my truck for a total of 1,000 amp hours of, or 1,200 amp hours of lithium. It's a lot of battery. And it's likely that many of the shipping companies would not allow my truck to get on board with those batteries on board because lithium is such a hazard.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, as much as I love you and I don't want them to not let you get on a boat, they're thinking smart. All those lithium batteries, we just had an accident recently near our neighborhood where you go off onto I-90, and there was a Tesla, and I've seen more than one Tesla this happened to.
Mm-hmm.
They can have the smallest of accidents, and they go up in flames, and them things like almost disintegrate down to the tires.
Oh, yeah. And that's the problem with lithium. So people have to understand, particularly here in our overland market, because we are all rabid fans of lithium batteries, right? They've effectively cut our weight on our trucks in half for our battery weight. They have doubled our capacity because a lithium battery can be drained down to zero, where a regular standard AGM battery can only go to 50%, and then it's basically you've killed it. So lithium batteries are fantastic. The problem is that on the other side of this, you have to understand that they are, if they get damaged or if they get into a fire, the first responders, as an example, have come out wanting to ban lithium batteries and electric cars because they're so dangerous that they can't even fight the fire. So they'll just let the fire burn on the highway.
Yeah, I was about to say, Mike, that's why the Teslas disintegrate. Mm-hmm. The firemen literally just stand around in a circle and watch it burn.
Yep, it would take like 1 million gallons of water, and it's just not worth fighting. So, and that's a serious concern, which is why the shipping industry, like as an example, I'm waiting for I've got a long drama going on with my batteries on board actually right now, and they're so advanced they went to sleep and aren't waking up. But that's a topic for another day. But the bottom line is I'm waiting on a battery to come to my truck. I can't it can't be shipped air. It has to go ground, right? Because you can't put these batteries on planes either. So there's issues with that. And then furthermore, you've got waste once they're done. The disposal of them is a problem. And as we've talked about, I think on prior podcasts, the mining of the resources that go into the batteries is super environmentally damaging. So, I don't want to beat this to death, but we talk a lot about EV cars and electric stuff and how it's going to come into the overland market, and electric Jeeps off road and things like that, which, by the way, are great. There's a lot of advantages to those things, but you can't look at it as the savior to the world, particularly environmentally, because to be honest, I think it's the complete opposite.
I agree.
Really. They're not environmentally friendly at all.
So how do you think this is going to shake out as far as internationally lithium batteries traveling?
I think there's been a lot of push the last couple of years by governments in the U.S. and Europe in particular that have tried to push EVs on people. And the problem that two things have come up. One, it was what we're discussing right now, obviously, which is sort of being brushed under the carpet. And then the other half is that the cost is not necessarily equitable to every person in society, right? Wealthy people can afford, you can buy a Tesla, but you can't necessarily at a low income level. So there's some of that's being forced upon people that is unfair. I don't think EV or electric is the solution long term. I just don't think it's gonna pan out. I don't want to say that it's necessarily the beta tapes of like VHS and beta, that it's just never going to happen. I think it's somewhere in between. I think it's going to catch on for a little while. You can already see it's starting to falter. I think you got to come up with something better. I think it's really probably hydrogen. I mean, it's probably water. Like if we can figure out how to turn water into power, then that's a no-brainer. I just don't think it's EV.
So you said the hydrogen. Why did you jump off that one?
Well, I mean, I just think that, look, if you can make energy out of your number one resource on planet Earth, which is water, that's a no-brainer,
But we do have some technology for the hydrogen.
Still expensive, still not realistic on a small scale like a car. But that's going to change, and we'll figure it out eventually. And that's what's going to kill electric, because if you've got an opportunity to take a bucket and get water out of a stream and power your car, or you got to rely on a bunch of guys that are probably sweat labor, underage, blood diamond people digging up lithium, which one are we going to select? We're going to go for the bucket of water guys.
The reality is, we as a human species were never meant to travel the great distances that we do. That's something that through our evolution, our curiosity occurred. It's not natural. There's very few species that international travel. Maybe a few species of whales. It's actually limited to whales and birds, some birds that migrate extensively. But generally speaking, most animals are hunter-gatherers in a fairly small area. I agree. And overlanding, by definition, is the complete opposite of that, right? So overlanding, our goal is to travel as far and wide as we can and see things. So it's kind of counterintuitive.
We knew we were going to get back to overlanding at some point on this podcast.
We always do. That's what we love. So the real answer to all those other things, what they have to do with overlanding, because I think the overlanding community is intelligent and can cover a large amount of topics. I don't think we're one thing.
I got asked at Overland Expo, somebody came up to me on Sunday and said, "Hey, Mike, how come you and Phil talk about politics on your Overland podcast?" And I said, well, we talk about everything. It's not just politics. It's, I mean, over the course of the last 2 years or whatever we've been doing this, we've talked about everything. It's all relevant. Everything is relevant. And I like to believe that, like you just said, I think that our listeners are at a higher intelligence level than your average. And I think I do. And I think it's great that we can share opinions and get feedback from you guys out there. And then we can, discuss more things that you want to know about. And I think you got to be rational. The problem that I have is I feel like we're always fighting what I call the Fox News CNN syndrome. It's soundbite, just polarizing stuff. And if you're intelligent, you know that the truth lies somewhere in between.
Bro,
always does.
Do you know how many times I've been like on YouTube and it's one of these guys, he's either liberal or he's conservative, but he says he's neither. And he's just showing you clips, and he'll show you like a clip of like for instance, there was this thing where they had these black guys sitting in a barber shop and they were asking them what they thought of Trump and would you vote for him? And I saw some YouTubers use the first half of a statement, and some of them used the second half of the statement. Some of them used it to make it sound like he said, yeah, I'm all for Trump. Mm-hmm. And some of them made it was like, we would never even consider Trump. Mm-hmm. But if you watch the whole thing, he was just saying he would look at things objectively and that we're not a monolith and that some people would vote for Trump and some people wouldn't. And it was literally, they would stop right there and like, see, I told you this, and they make this point and sway your mind into thinking that you saw something that you didn't. So I've gotten to the point now where sound bites, I immediately go to that conference. I'll go to that C-SPAN feed. I'll go to whatever, and I'll watch the whole thing.
And it turns out totally different.
Often it turns out to be something totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they weren't even talking about the subject that you thought they were talking about.
Yep. Yeah, we've all condensed our reality down into a 15-second TikTok reel.
Think about if somebody clipped some of the stuff we say. Woo!
That's right. We should try that. We should do that sometime, Phil. Let's look at one of our podcasts and take little clips and put them together. It'll be completely different than what we actually said.
Well, do you remember when we did the show about Biden and I put out that little clip about us talking about Biden? It was really the first time we really talked politics. And that's not a complete statement. I have it chopped up. And even part of it where I'm saying quit being politically correct.
That's right.
I was addressing something totally different that had nothing to do with politics.
That's right.
That's a good example.
Yeah, exactly. And now, with AI and everything else, I mean, you really got to do your research, because not only, you could be listening or visually looking at something that isn't even real.
Bro, I saw my favorite TV show mom doing something deplorable with that AI.
So I got to tell you, I'm working on right now behind the scenes. I've got this program my buddy Ray has turned me on to that basically emulates your voice. So you talk to it and it learns to speak like you. So and many people have used this. I forget. There's a couple. There's one guy. Wish I could remember who. An author. So audiobooks are super popular for people to listen to in the car now, but it's very time consuming. You write a book and then you've got to do the audio for the book. Well, now the AI can do it for you. So now you've got, now I can read my own book. I didn't even do it though. It sounds like me, but it isn't me. And it comes in, it's actually works great for YouTube videos and narration and whatever. So just because you think so right now you guys are not really listening to Phil and I.
Yeah, I don't know how things turned out, but what you're talking about is one of the components of the dispute between the Writers Guild and these companies.
Yep.
They had that big strike. I think it was like a year ago.
That's right. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, and look at it. It's like now, what was that? Star Wars or whatever, had, Alec Guinness and Princess Leia or whatever in it. And they were already dead. And, so, I mean, you can do a lot of stuff that we couldn't do only a few years ago.
And I read a lot of Hollywood newsletters and stuff for production and stuff like that. And somebody just wrote an article a few months ago, and they were listing all of the different movies that you've watched where a person either died or quit or got fired. And they've been using AI to complete movies for quite some time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Well, I mean, movies throughout the course of history have used the predecessor to AI would be like body doubles and things. So we've been using that kind of stuff for, 100 years.
So, Mike, I think we covered too much. I mean, we covered enough. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, we're going to save something for next week.
Yeah. You notice I'm ending this like really abruptly. Let's see how this goes.
It's going to be good. Promise. We'll promise we'll get something. We'll talk about Jeeps or Land Rovers or something next week, just so you know.
And for those who have come this far, and this is your first time with us, this is not all we talk about. We talk extensively about overland travel. We talk about nomad. We talk about travel. And we talk about it to minutia. We talk about the details. We talk about the things that other people don't talk about. So do not think this is all we talk about. Come back. Right. Also, we have some very special guests.
And we got a couple big ones coming up very soon. So stay tuned for that.
Mike said very soon. He enunciated that because it's my job to get that person on here. So he's being passive aggressive right now.
That's right.
Any last words, Mike?
No. I'll see everybody next week.
All right. You guys know what I'm going to say. Stay safe, tread lightly, and hopefully we'll see you here or on a trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.